Florida residents returned to the beaches on Friday after Governor Ron DeSantis gave the green light to reopen parts of the coast. People could be seen along the Jacksonville coast, some less than 6 feet apart, swimming, surfing, and tanning. On Friday, Florida's Department of Health announced more than 1,400 additional infections, with an additional 516 coronavirus cases reported on Saturday, bringing the state total to 25,269. The total number of fatalities reached 740. Now, DeSantis told local leaders Friday that they were free to reopen beaches as long as social distancing guidelines were enforced. According to the guidelines, coolers, chairs, blankets, towels, and grills are not permitted. Surfing, swimming are allowed, but not sunbathing. I actually think that makes sense.
Let me ask John. John, I want to talk to John Heilemann first. Hey, John, you're a California guy, and we know that a big part of California culture, a big part of Florida culture, is walking on the beach. And you know, I've got no problem with beaches being open if people walk. And again, not congregate, because, you know, people need to get out of their houses. It's just like these public parks. Not so sure it's the wise move to close it down. You could open up public parks, let people get out, get fresh air, exercise, walk with their families and friends as long as they socially distance. So I know that hashtag Florida Morons was going around this weekend when he reopened some of the beaches, but if social distancing is respected, that's actually good for people to get out and walk, good for their health, good to build up their lungs, good for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, look, I agree with that. I think the problem for Governor DeSantis, as you know, Joe, is that Florida is a very big state that was very, very late to the party. If you think about other big states, places like New York, places like California that you mentioned, they were on the bandwagon, very early. They were leaders. I shouldn't say they're on the bandwagon. They were leaders in the drive to understand that in order to flatten the curve, that we needed to have these very draconian stay-at-home orders. It is the case that you are allowed in those places to, including in Los Angeles, for instance, where Eric Garcetti has been as tough and on the stay-at-home thing as any governor or as any mayor in the country. You're still allowed to go out and take a walk in Los Angeles. You're still allowed to go out and ride your bike in Los Angeles. There's things you're allowed to do in Los Angeles. And so I don't think anybody in principle has a problem with that. I think that what the problem they have is that the notion that Florida was so lax about it for so long, and that the fact that DeSantis is doing this right now seems to indicate that he is going to, having been late to move towards social distancing, he's now going to be early to try to open up the state, and that this is a kind of leading indicator that he's going to try to reopen the state. Having just barely shut it down, he's now going to try to reopen it ahead of when would be safe.
Yeah, let's bring in right now State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg. And a lot to talk about, Dave. I think the biggest problem right now in the state of Florida is the fact that, well, obviously, we've got a lot of senior citizens who are dying in nursing homes. You can go to every county, and disproportionately, the areas that are hit are the seniors. So we should be concerned about younger Floridians going out, seeing their parents and grandparents, and their grandparents getting sick or dying. And so that leads to testing. Help us out. You keep me updated pretty regularly on how things are going in the state of Florida. Let's talk about testing. What's the latest there?
Joe, we've had about 258,000 tests in the state. That's not people tested, that's number of tests. Some people are tested multiple times. Our state is about 21.5 million people. So we're not where we need to be. We have not flattened the curve, and we have not achieved what the president's own task force says needs to happen before you reopen, which is a 14-day downward trajectory of cases. You have people probably right now waiting in line outside Hard Rock Stadium, as they often do, in the wee hours, waiting for drive-through testing, only to get to the front of the line and be told that the tests are gone because they only have 400 per day. It's a very frustrating experience. And after enough complaints, the state finally, late last week, increased the number of tests at that location to 700 from 400. And also, I've looked at the statistics statewide, and it looks like over the last 3 days, the state has increased the number of overall tests that's a step in the right direction. But we risk undoing our progress if you reopen our beaches and other facilities too soon.
Yeah, and so let's talk about Governor DeSantis. And again, in many ways, he just hasn't seemed to taken this pandemic seriously from the very beginning, even though he has so many senior citizens, and a lot of whom are dying in Florida. Why has he designated WWE as an essential activity? I know the connections between Donald Trump and WWE are very close, but seriously, making WWE a, quote, essential activity just smacks of such partisan hackery. I'm even caught off guard by it. What's behind it?
Now, Governor DeSantis ran as a disciple of President Trump, so it's no surprise that he's taking his cues from the White House. I've got to say, in full disclosure, Joe, I've been a pro wrestling fan. I think Willie Geist has been one in the day. And perhaps having these shows in a closed arena with no fans and a skeleton production crew and lots of testing amongst the performers may not be a threat to public safety. But the problem is that the process reeks of politics. The process makes you think that these decisions are being made politically and not because of public safety. That's why he allowed the opening of our beaches, we think, because of politics. That's why he allowed large religious gatherings despite the stay-at-home order, because of politics. Vince McMahon, who runs the WWE, is close friends with President Trump. He sits on President Trump's economic committee to reopen the country. President Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame. Linda McMahon, who's the wife of Vince McMahon, served in President Trump's cabinet and was the head of the Small Business Administration until she left last year to run President Trump's super PAC. And the timing of Governor DeSantis' decision seems a little suspect, because his announcement that pro wrestling was an essential activity came on the same day as the super PAC announced it was spending $18.5 million in Florida. Is that a coincidence or politics? A lot of us think it's the latter.
Well, of course, and there were reports, Mika, that gyms, Donald Trump had announced that gyms should reopen up the day after he spoke to the owner of Equinox. I mean, this is a guy that, again, he may think that he's being shrewd by talking to these business owners and then talking about reopening these areas, but he's being too clever by half. All their money, all of the political contributions that they're going to throw his way will be worthless if people start going back into gyms and get sick. I don't think they're going to go back into the gyms. I don't think they're going to go to wrestling matches. I don't think any of this is going to work.
I think beaches and parks are a bigger conversation, which we can have. State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Aronberg.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. And still ahead, remember this line from the president in the middle of a briefing last month on the deadly pandemic.
One thing, Secretary of State Pompeo is extremely busy, so if you have any question for him right now, could you do that? Because you know what I'd like to do? I'd like him to go back to the State Department, or as they call it, the Deep State Department.
We're going to talk to Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist David Rode about his new book, In Deep. Plus, some important news out of New York, where Governor Andrew Cuomo says the state may finally be past the plateau. Mayor Bill de Blasio joins us at the top of the hour. That's ahead on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.